Let's go. So hi, everyone, and welcome once again to the Data Migration Pitfalls session. Thanks for joining. A flawless data migration is one that never takes place. And whoever said that definitely knew what they were talking about. Not only is data migration always a big challenge, it also tends to be one of the most underestimated pieces of a ServiceNow implementation project. It has a lot of hidden pitfalls, and the first step to avoiding them is becoming aware of their existence, and that's what the session is all about. The biggest mistake you can make when dealing with a data migration task is misunderstand the scope. It usually starts with a seemingly simple and straightforward requirement like this one. We just need to migrate our incidents. How difficult can that be? The thing is that in reality, what your stakeholders probably expect from you is something very, very different. It is likely the case that they also expect all of these things to be migrated to the new platform along with the incident record itself, although technically these things are stored elsewhere. It is also not uncommon for organizations with less mature processes to register all kinds of requests in the same database table. So what people can refer to as incidents may actually be a collection of a great variety of things. Incidents, requests, changes, security incidents, customer service requests, cases, whatever. And when migrating data to ServiceNow, you may want to put all of those things into their proper place in your platform. So make sure that before you start doing field mapping, you actually take care of the table mapping and figure out what needs to be put where. I also like thinking of a data migration as of moving to a new house. Do you really want to take all of your old stuff with you, or would you like to use this unique opportunity to get rid of some of the things that you no longer need? It's up to you, but by asking the right questions, you can actually reduce the scope of work significantly. I've seen organizations that had huge PST files, several gigabytes in size, attached to support cases. This is not what you want to do in ServiceNow, and you probably don't need to take all that data with you when doing a migration project. To sum up, these are the steps I recommend taking when working on a data migration in order to understand the scope. So first of all, start early. Data migration is not something that can be done quickly at the end of a project. You'll need enough time to plan, design, build, test things properly. So make sure you start working on it on day one. Explore the scope, look for hidden assumptions, make sure that you understand it in every detail and that all stakeholders are on the same page. Challenge the scope, try to reduce it as much as possible. And even if you get told that certain things need to be migrated due to legal requirements, don't take that for granted. Challenge that statement and make sure you have the right contact persons from the legal department. Very often it is the case that people who talk most about legal requirements don't have any clue whatsoever of what they really mean. Typically, everybody is just so much afraid of violating some um, some legislation that people prefer not to talk to you about that at all. So make sure you talk to the right people who know the regulatory topics in detail. And finally, validate your scope. Make sure that you understand the dependencies between different types of records that you are trying to migrate. Once you know your scope, it's time to think about how to migrate the data. Every ServiceNow administrator knows how to import data from a file using import sets, but not everybody knows that you can also trigger import sets via a REST API. And this comes in extremely handy when you have to deal with large amounts of data. This approach is more scalable, secure, it can be fully automated, and it also brings extra capabilities, like, for example, the ability to migrate attachments. And attachments are actually a tricky point, and you need to be aware of certain limitations here. ServiceNow has a limit on the max size of a REST request payload, which is 10 megabytes by default. You can increase it a bit using system properties, but not beyond 25 megabytes. You should also be aware that base64 encoding that is required for this migration method will cause some overhead in terms of string size. So the actual upper limit for the files that can be migrated in this way is slightly less than the setting. It can be the case that the tool you are migrating from supports varying access levels for attachments. In ServiceNow, that's not the case. If you have read access to a record, you also have read access to all of its attachments by default. So if you have to migrate from a system that has different access levels for attachments, one possibility is to use child tasks. You can create a child task and put attachments that are meant for internal use only on the child task level. Record numbering is something that also deserves special attention. It may well be the case that your previous tool uses the same numbering patterns, the same prefixes as your target ServiceNow instance. So especially if you're migrating data from several tables or from several systems, pay attention to record numbering. Make sure you don't reuse the same numbers twice. Legacy data might use legacy choices that you don't want to be selectable for new records in your ServiceNow instance. And if that's the case, you will either need to pre-configure those choices before importing data, or let the system generate them during the import itself. And you will need to deactivate them later on so that they're not selectable for new records. But you want to make sure that you don't deactivate them too early, because if you do that, they will not be picked up by the system during the import. And because inactive choices are basically treated as invalid during the import. A very common mistake is forgetting about the active field when migrating requests. Make sure you have a mapping configured for the active field in your transform map based on the value of the record's state. And also, you want to make sure that the two fields are in sync for new records. And for that, you can use dictionary attributes. You don't need to write any code to create any business rules. I've seen people do that very often. That's not the way to go. Dictionary attributes are your friend in this case. Pay attention to the user IDs. Your legacy system may use email as a unique identifier for user records. You don't want to do that in ServiceNow for two reasons. In ServiceNow, emails don't have to be unique, and there are reasons for that. Sometimes several users can use a shared mailbox and have it mentioned in both user profiles, or one user can be registered as a user and as a CSM contact and have two records with the same email address. And secondly, email address length can easily exceed the maximal allowed length for a user ID in ServiceNow, which is just 40 characters long. And if it ever seems tempting to increase the user ID field length, don't do that. It's going to break some of the base system's functionality. So just please don't touch it. You cannot get around data policies when importing data, because that's what they are there for, to make sure the data you import is consistent, that all the necessary values are provided. However, current data policies meant for new records may not be applicable to your legacy data, and that can cause problems during the import. So make sure you know what data policies are configured on the target table before trying to import anything. You may need to adjust your data policies or configure a separate set of data policies for legacy data. By the way, there are some data policies out of the box, so have a look at them before importing data. Similarly, default values can get in the way when you import data, and likewise, you should familiarize yourself with existing default values for the tables, for the base system tables and fields. So take time to have a look at them, and you may need to override them in order to be successful in your data migration. Last but not least, no matter how hard you try, you likely won't get it right the first time, and that's perfectly fine. You simply need to be prepared for analyzing errors, fixing them, and for re-importing data. And in order to be able to do that, you need to have unique identifiers for your records and have coalesce settings configured properly in your transform maps so that you don't have to delete data before importing it again. Keep in mind that deleting records takes even more time than creating them. And using appropriate coalesce settings can save you a lot of headache. What I also like doing is creating mapping tables and giving process owners access to those tables so that they can manage mappings themselves and also can see afterwards what the settings were and find out the reasons for errors or any surprises that may happen during the import. Additionally, I highly recommend taking time to configure consistent form layouts for import set tables. By default, import set table form layouts get generated automatically, and that means that fields are placed on the form in a random manner, which is not good for effective troubleshooting. So if you take time and configure a meaningful layout for your import set table, then you can compare the data in the import set record and the record in the target table side by side. That can save a lot of time during debugging and bug fixing. And finally, make sure you are aware of the data retention period for your import set tables. By default, import set data is deleted after 7 days. That can be insufficient. Your testing may take longer than that, and you don't want to lose that data before you're done testing. So personally, I like to deactivate the schedule job that does the cleanup until I have the sign off from the customer. And that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining. Thanks for your attention. Feel free to follow my Sys Properties blog. Also subscribe to my Telegram channel. I will be sharing some more tips regarding data migration in the coming days and weeks. So see you there. Thanks a lot once again. Stay healthy, keep learning, and don't use current update in your business rules. Bye for now.